A fingertip rolls a bead of fog across a cold pane. It gathers, curves, and then, like an answer, it runs. Listen closely. Who breathed this here? If you can, find somewhere dark and quiet. Put your headphones on. I'm Sam Nang, and this is Nature's Dread. Tonight's story is called Fog Glass. Stay with me. This begins with something tiny and ordinary, a breath on glass, and then it keeps speaking.
Mara volunteers at the city conservatory. She comes in at dawn to prune, to pot, to coax sleep-groggy seedlings into a new day. The greenhouse smells like wet earth and eucalyptus, like the small, steady work of making things live. It's warm inside when the mornings are still bitter outside, and people pass through, a jogger who waters the fern wall, an apprentice who logs the humidity, a retired gardener who brings old seeds and quiet stories. At night, the lights dim, doors lock, the plants sleep, and the glass fogs.
One morning, Mara sees it, a faint, half-rolled initial traced into the condensation, like someone had tried to write and then stopped. She hesitates, an impulse to touch and clear, to make it just vanish. She resists. Instead, she photographs it, not with close-ups, but from a respectful distance, because she knows glass remembers things that people forget. That first mark feels private. It feels like an answer to a question nobody asked yet. Over the next weeks, those quiet marks multiply. Lipid rings where a mug rested, a narrow streak where a scarf brushed the pane, circular prints like the ghost of a cigarette butt. The staff begin to catalog them. Timestamps, cleaning logs, who was scheduled to close. Patterns emerge. The residue appears mostly after a certain hour. It clusters along one side of the greenhouse, and one pane in particular seems to collect a lot of small histories. Mara draws a cheap map in the ledger, noting times and a shorthand for type. Breath, smear, ring.
Here is where science leans in. I spoke with a conservation scientist who told me that glass is not inert when it comes to human traces. Oils from skin, salts from breath, tiny protein residues. They can cling, they can evaporate, they can redeposit when glass fogs again. But, and this is important, the chemistry is rarely conclusive on its own. It tells you a story of contact and of timing in broad strokes, not a full name on a page. These traces are like impressions in soft clay, suggestive, fragile, and open to interpretation.
An environmental forensics specialist I talked with explained contamination pathways. A wind gust, a damp coat in the foyer, a maintenance cloth wiped across a frame. Any of those can move residues. He warned against leap making. You can collect a pattern, but you can't collect certainty. And the cold case advisor? They laid out the human side, chain of custody, privacy, family contact, and the harm of premature disclosure. The consensus was simple and sharp. Notice. Photograph. Do not touch. Do not swab. Notify trained authorities or a designated conservator. Preserve care over curiosity.
Then came the photo. Mara's ledger and the lab's annotated image made their way to a family member, a niece who, on a shaky phone call, said she thought the scarf smear looked like the one her uncle used to tuck under his chin. Her voice broke. A missing person report from years ago named a gardener who'd slept in that glass house. The niece wasn't looking for closure so much as an answer. Mara felt the ledger in her hands like a weight. Who do you tell? How do you tell it without breaking what little trust exists? The building had become a witness, and Mara was a reluctant interpreter.
This is the turning point. A photograph that might be a key, and a responsibility that won't be solved by a single look. Mara could have deleted the images to protect privacy. She could have shouted the find across town. She could have tried to lift prints herself. Instead, she called the greenhouse manager, and then a number the conservation scientist had given her, a liaison who works with police and with heritage teams. That chain, slow, formal, careful, was exactly what the experts recommended. It kept the evidence intact
and the family's dignity intact too.
Night fell. Mara returned alone, with only a headlamp and the soft rustle of plants. The glass breathed back at her, every exhale a sudden film, every inhale a clearing. She moved slowly, photographing from angles that minimized glare, not pushing up to the pane, cataloging light, shadow, and residue without disturbing it. Her breath fogged the glass in front of her. She held it back like a promise, like a test of restraint. It felt like a ritual, careful, fearful, patient. The building answered in the same language it always had, in beads, in streaks, in things that look like initials, and might be nothing more than coincidence. When police and a conservator finally examined the panes, they confirmed what the lab had said in more technical language. The residue types are consistent with human contact and with repeated deposition, but they cannot, without controlled sampling and comparative material, identify a person. The cold case advisor reminded me, correlations can give leads, but they can also give false hope. Families deserve honesty. Communities deserve protection from speculative gossip. The greenhouse kept its histories. We kept our limits.
Community debate followed. Some neighbors wanted the panes cleared, sterilized, and reset. Clean slate, they said. Others argued for preservation, for the idea that if the glass remembers, perhaps it should be allowed to keep that memory until the right people can look at it properly. A committee was formed. A privacy statement was drafted. Training was scheduled for volunteers. The conversation was not about ghosts or glamour. It was about ethics and evidence and the small civics of a shared place. In the end, the greenhouse became more than a plant house. It became a classroom on attention and restraint.
So what remains? There is a single pane, higher than the benches, where a faint thumb smear curls like the suggestion of a letter. It could be an initial. It could be a smudge pushed by the window wiper. Years from now, someone will wipe it clean, or tape a note there, or leave it as it is. The ambiguity is the point. The glass tells partial truths. We ask partial questions. The ethical act is to hold both, curiosity and care.
A short note before we close. If you listen and you live near a shared place where traces like this might appear, please, don't try to harvest evidence yourself. Don't swab, don't attempt fingerprint lifts, don't post identifying photos online. Photograph from a respectful distance if you must, and then contact a manager, a conservator, or local authorities. Protect privacy. Protect dignity. Protect the possibility that something real might be found by people trained to handle it.
If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who listens in the dark. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want more context on residue science, chain of custody, or how to report a sensitive find responsibly, check the episode notes for a short list of resources and contacts. Thank you for being careful with curiosity. I'm Sam Nang. Until next time, check the corners.